Welcome to the ReaderHouse Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. There's a new book out by author Rick Ench, and it's fiction for kids. It's titled Nuala. And Rick is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, and we're going to talk all about this. Rick, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here with me.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate you interviewing me, Corey.
I appreciate you being here. I'm excited to learn about Nuala. Can you tell me about it?
Okay, so the book is a book that was a long time coming. I had this idea many years ago, but, during my free time that a lot of us had back during COVID, I actually completed work on it, kind of updated some of the ideas to match the technology that we have today or what I see in the future. The book basically is about a world where it's like our world, it's not though, but where things got so bad and people got so serious that they basically turned things over to computers to run their society. And a lot of things were lost along the way, but one of the things that was lost was laughter. And it had been gone and missing for so long, no one really even knew what it was until Nuala came along. Nuala comes along and she laughs. And they don't know what to do with her. They think she has some type of mental affliction or they can't figure it out. The doctors and the teachers are mystified. They kind of isolate her. They finally allow her to go to school, but as laughter does, it's contagious. And all of a sudden, an event happens and the other kids start laughing. And actually, the laughter is transmitted, through the airwaves. Child study team, the doctors and the teachers, they start laughing and they catch themselves and realize that what Nuala has is contagious and they kind of freak out. And the story continues from there.
Wow, I love it. Where does this idea come from? What sparked this?
Well, part of it is kind of looking at the world we live in now. And, as we kind of, and I don't want to get this funny book. It's a humorous book. It's about laughter. But the more serious side of it is the world that we live in right now. We see examples of where people seem to be willing to give up some of what makes them human in order to solve problems or do things more easily. And we're, I think, all too easily drawn into this world of AI and transhumanism and things like that, which there's a downside, there's a danger to, as far as I'm concerned. And, part of this book was a way of kind of talking to little, young kids about these issues without getting real heavy about it, but just giving them something to think about, food for thought. But like I said, mostly it's a humorous story that kids seem to really enjoy.
Rick, what kind of age range are we talking about here?
Well, it's a novella for young readers, is what I call it, or young at heart readers. Actually, adults like this book quite a bit, too. That's the feedback I've been getting. But I'd say kids, it's a read-to book for 7, 8 years old. I have my grandsons. I have 2 grandsons, and when they were 7, 8, they're like 9 and 11 now. When they were 7 and 8 is when I first started getting close to finishing the book and read it to them, and they really enjoyed it. As far as being able to read it themselves, I think it's probably geared toward like precocious kids in 3rd grade, readers in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, up through 12 years old. I think it's not really a teen book because it doesn't deal with those kind of teenage subjects, although there is a love interest and there are some things that kind of point in that direction as well.
Is this your first time at writing and publishing, or have you done this kind of thing before, Rick?
One book that I co-wrote about Native American music was published by Scholastic. It was available. It's for middle school kids, but it's more of an educational book about the music of American Indian tribes. But this is my first kind of fully fictional book.
I'm looking at the cover. I love the artwork. Can you tell me about all that?
Yeah, the artwork was created by a friend of mine, Lynn Averill. She is the artist or illustrator who did the Young Amelia Bedelia series, many other books. But she's a close friend of mine. And, when I asked her to read the book and see if she wanted to do a cover, she was like, love the book. And yes, of course, I'll do it. So that was great. So that's how that came about.
Is there anything you might have picked up along the way that you might be able to throw out there as advice for the aspiring authors who are listening?
Yeah, I would say get the work done, enjoy, have fun doing it. And then, once it's done, start looking around. There's some way for you to get it published, and there's some way for you to market it, get it out there.
Well, I do think that kids and adults alike, we're really going to be into this book. Again, it's titled Nuala, It's written by Rick Ench, and this is published by Hawes & Jenkins Publishing, so you can find it everywhere, like at Amazon or Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Rick, it's been really fun talking with you here today and learning all about NULA and the whole process. Thanks again for joining me here.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. I really appreciate it, man.
Joining me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, author Tommasina Huber. Tommasina, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you joining me tonight.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you, and I just wanted to say congratulations. You have a new book out. The title is 12 Lessons Learned on the Road Home, a roadmap for living a well-loved life. Tommasina, can you tell me all about this?
Sure. So as I was a hospice nurse, I really got the opportunity to sit with people that were at the end of their life in their last days, hours, and they really had a lot of lessons to share. Nothing about how to die, but really about how to live right. And they really were interested in passing along those great life lessons. And so I was very lucky to be present in that and take notes and share them with the world.
What was that spark made you decide, hey, I want to write this. I want to put this in a book and put it out there for everyone?
Well, the lessons were so profound, and I know that they really moved me, and I was just kind of journaling through it because hospice nursing is hard. You lose everyone you love. And so it was a way of me getting through that. And when I realized that these were things that I didn't need to keep close, I needed to share with the world. They were just really, really that important.
Did you have a specific reading audience you're thinking of when you wrote this?
Well, I think anyone really that is kind of in their midlife and really looking at life and saying, what really matters? Where do I want my life to go? You know, those pivotal times that you kind of are more reflective. So I would say, you know, women, men in midlife, really just contemplating where they want their life to be and what their legacy is going to be.
When it comes to writing and publishing and all of that, Tommasina, are you new to all of this or are you more experienced in it?
No, I've always written short stories and, you know, more personal writing, but this is my first time writing for others. So it was a very unique experience for me.
Being that it was your first one, did this take a really long time for you to write and then put through that publishing process?
So writing did not take a very long time. I was very dedicated to it. I made sure that I set a schedule daily to get this out. I felt really driven to get this message out. The publishing part of it was very interesting. That was a whole new learning process. I obviously hadn't been through it before. So that was the part that took a little bit longer.
Yeah, a lot of new authors are surprised at how much is involved in that publishing process. What did you find the most challenging part of that?
I think finding the right publisher that matched, you know, what you were writing about is most important. Because of the way this book came out, it wasn't intended to be a Christian book, but because of the content and how people, what they face at their end of life, there was that Christian element that naturally came out of it, and it was a nonfiction. So I didn't really want to change the story. So it took me a little bit to find someone a publisher that would fit that, because it wasn't quite secular enough and it wasn't quite Christian enough. So I kind of fell in that little hole. But Christian Publishing did a great job of getting it out there for me.
I imagine it was a pretty special day for you whenever you finally got the first copy in of this and you got to hold it in your hands and look at it. I mean, your name's on the cover and everything. What was that like?
It was amazing, especially, you know, for those that get a chance to read it. These stories are life-changing. And so it really, the bottom line is I wanted everyone to have the opportunity to learn and grow from these 12 beautiful souls that shared these with me. So that was what was really most meaningful, is that I knew that other people would get these lessons as well.
Have you given thought to writing more, maybe a follow-up to this or some other kind of book here in the future?
Yes. So I'm starting another book right now. It's called Untethered. It is going to be a fiction, not a nonfiction. That way, you know, I can kind of steer it and make it grow and move in ways that I want to. Where the nonfiction, you know, it's a little bit more confined because I really wanted to honor their stories and their words as they were presented to me. So I'm excited about writing this next fiction book.
Wonderful. Well, I think there are going to be so many people helped by this book, and I encourage everyone listening to seek it out. Again, it's titled 12 Lessons Learned on the Road Home, a roadmap for living a well-loved life. This is written by Tommasina Huber, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and it's available everywhere. So head on over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or your traditional brick-and-mortar store and you'll be able to pick it up. Now, Tommasina, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight and learning all about this book. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you. I enjoyed it as well.
This is a story about love at first sight. It's the new book by Nick Pappas titled Christmas Eyes, The Journey of a Lifetime. And Nick is joining me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, and we're going to talk all about this book. Nick, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you being here. Can you tell me all about Christmas Eyes and what readers can expect to find here?
Yeah, well, it actually was written as a Christmas present for my co-writer, Maria Orlando. I always told her she had beautiful eyes, and it was Christmas time. So I wrote this as a Christmas present for her.
And what sorts of readers do you think would be really into it?
I think anybody who has an emotional side, which I do, would like this.
Once you sat down and got started writing this, Nick, how long of a journey was this for you? Did it take you a long time to write and then put through that publishing process?
No, actually, it was easy. We had written 3 books together before this, and so this one, I just wrote down essentially who she was and just took the story from there.
Now, this isn't your first time writing or publishing, correct?
No, we did 3 books together before this, Maria and I, and I can tell you where you can find them later if you want, but they're all on Amazon. This was sort of, as I said, it was like a Christmas present for her. I also wrote a song called Christmas Eyes, which was also a Christmas present for her. You know, that's how the thing came about.
And what's going through your head, and what are you feeling whenever that first copy finally comes in and you get to hold this book, like Christmas Eyes, in your hands for the first time? What's that like?
Okay, well, to be perfectly honest, it wasn't so much holding it. It was knowing that it was published and people could get it and look at it. And it was more of a mental, emotional thing rather than a physical thing, quite honestly.
And when you think about it, that you are a published author, Nick, what's the most rewarding aspect of it for you?
Having feelings and putting them down and having other people. I had a friend from college who just finished reading this, and he said it was amazing, Christmas Eyes, and that really made me feel good.
The publishing process, there's an awful lot involved in there. Nick, what do you find the most challenging part about that publishing end of things?
Getting somebody to believe that what you wrote was worthwhile.
Looking down the road, do you have plans to write more and publish more?
Yeah, actually, hopefully there's going to be one coming out in August, which is essentially sort of a memoir of my time in the Army with a wrinkle thrown in. But we don't have the title quite down yet, so that should be out next month sometime.
Whenever you're writing, Nick, is writer's block ever a thing you have to deal with?
No, quite honestly, I'm not trying to sound egotistical. But see, before I did this, I've written lyrics for over 100 songs. I worked with a composer, and we worked for over 20 years together. So that was sort of throwing in the bullpen, and you come into the game, as it were. I segued from writing lyrics to writing books, and it wasn't really that difficult. It's difficult getting it done right, but the writing process has never been that difficult, quite honestly.
And now that you've published and written a lot, what advice now could you have for the aspiring authors that are listening to us?
Okay, I would say just write what's in your heart. And actually, that's what Maria told me one time. I was looking for something for my next book. I said, what do you think? She said, look inside. That's why she's such an inspiration. So those 2 words that told me what to do. And that's what the advice I can pass on to other authors.
That's good advice. Now, I've often found that authors really like to read. They're avid readers. Nick, what kind of a reader are you?
I try to read when I get a chance. I've read a lot of books over the years. My favorite book of all time is Christmas Carol, and Catcher in the Rye is second, if that gives you an idea. I also try to have my book start off with a good opening line. You know, Marley was dead, call me Ishmael, to get the reader wondering what's this going to be about. So I Passed was actually something that I heard one time, a long time ago, and I used that for the opening line of this book.
And something that you might not think about when you start off writing a book is what it's actually going to look like. Is it going to look good up there on the shelf? So how difficult is it for you to decide what the cover is going to look like, for example?
Well, like for this one, I'm also a high school teacher, and so is Maria. And I got one of my art students to sketch the cover of this book, and it turned out great. It's a picture of a very attractive woman, and that's what the book is about.
Yeah, it is a beautiful cover. That sounds like a book I think a lot of readers are going to be into, and I encourage, if you're listening right now, go check it out. Again, it's titled Christmas Eyes, The Journey of a Lifetime. It's written by Nick Pappas and published by Newman Springs Publishing, so you can find it everywhere. Head over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores, and you'll be able to pick this up. Nick, it's been really nice talking with you today. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks again.
Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
The new book by Nina Dean. It's titled God's Poems for You and Me as We Face Grief and Adversity, Inspired by God. This book is a comforting collection of spiritual poetry, and that's what we're going to be talking about right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. The author, Nina, is here with me. Nina, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you being here with me tonight.
Well, thank you. It's a joy and a blessing that I never knew that I would have.
Well, I'm really happy to be talking with you, and I'm curious to learn all about God's poems for you and me. Can you tell me what readers are going to find here?
Well, my husband passed in 2022 in October.
Sorry.
And in November, we had his celebration of life service on November the 19th. On November the 26th, God started waking me up in the morning, in the middle of the night, morning, noon, and night. He would talk to me. And when he would talk to me, he would give me words to write down. And so I would get up and I would write them down. The words would be a sentence. The sentence would be another sentence. And before you knew it, I was telling a story from beginning to end about how I am facing grief and adversity and how the poems have comforted me.
Nina, what sorts of readers do you think would really be into this poetry?
Definitely people. I live in a manufactured home park, 55 and over. We have a lot of widows and widowers. If these poems, God said, if these poems have comforted me, I want them in a book for all the world to see. And one of the first poems I shared with a friend, it touched her heart because she said, I need to have this poem and share it with my friend because she's going through grief also. And I said, if it touched your heart, it's because it was inspired by God. I was just the vessel that wrote the words he gave to me. And before I knew it, I had 57 poems from God.
When it comes to being published, Nina, is this your first time or have you been published before this?
Never have I been published before. Never have I been a poet before. This is how God takes something traumatic in your life and turns it into something positive and good.
Being that it was your first book, did this one take you a really long time to do? How long of a journey are we talking about here?
We're talking starting in 2022, and in 2024, the book is finally published.
So that day finally comes, and you get your first copy in. You finally get to hold God's poems for you and me in your hands. It's a real thing. Nina, what kind of a moment was that like for you?
Well, God spoke to me, and he said he wanted these poems in a book for all the world to see. And when I saw that book for the first time, I knew that God had made it a reality. And as I speak with you, words come out of my mouth, and sometimes they rhyme. And as I speak to people or friends, the words come out in rhyme. It's something that I've never had before that God has given to me. I am using it for his glory, and I pray that it will comfort others as it has comforted me.
And when you think about the fact that now you're a published author, Nina, what's the most rewarding aspect of that for you?
The most rewarding aspect is to share it with my family. And God said it will be a legacy for my family. My daughter, who's an artist, God also included in the vision. He gave me the vision of what the cover of the book would be. And I gave that vision to my daughter, and she painted that cover of the book that God gave to me.
Oh, that's a beautiful cover. Well done. Nina, when you sit down to do some reading, is poetry normally one of those things?
You know, I don't read poetry, but when I'm reading something and I read the scriptures and I read encouraging messages with wake-up calls and devotions every morning, when I begin to read, the words start to rhyme for me. I'm thinking about they could finish this sentence and it would rhyme. So the rhymes are inside of me all the time. They just pour out of me. If I'm texting my kids, if I'm talking on the phone, if I'm sending an email, they turn into a poem as I'm speaking.
Again, this is titled God's Poems for You and Me, as we face grief and adversity, inspired by God. This is written by Nina Dean, and it's published by Christian Faith Publishing. So head over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, or take a walk down the street to your local bookshop, and you'll be able to find this book. Well, Nina, thank you so much again for coming on the show and telling me all about your poetry. I had a really nice time talking tonight.
Thank you for taking the time to interview me, and I hope this book of poems will bless others as they've blessed me.
The Praying Nurse. It's the new book written by Adam Walker, and it's the story of connection and the power of prayer. We're going to be talking all about this here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. The author, Adam, is with me now. Adam, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here with me tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
Absolutely. I'm curious about The Praying Nurse and what readers are going to find here, Adam. Can you tell me about it?
Yeah, so The Praying Nurse, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 10 years. It's just kind of a story based on some of the events I've had while I've been a nurse. I'm a very avid Christian. I make it well known. Some of my patients, they go into procedures, surgeries. They want to pray. They want to talk. They're scared. So this is just kind of what that's based off of. I never, really planned on it. It was just something that God brought to my attention, and I felt like I needed to run with it.
What sorts of readers did you have in mind for this?
So it's for children. It's a children's book. It just kind of, introduces kids into the power of prayer, what it can do, how special it is to have that relationship with God, which is a big thing for me. I have a 3-year-old son. I want to raise him that way. We read it every night. He loves the book. It's geared toward the younger generation. I'm just kind of introducing them to God and the power of prayer.
Adam, are you new to this whole writing and publishing thing, or have you done it before?
No, this is all brand new to me. Honestly, I never intended, like I said, God kind of just brought this to me. I never intended to do anything like this. I was trying to go to sleep for work one night, couldn't sleep. I prayed to God, help me rest so that I can be my best for work tomorrow. He had other plans. I just started filling my head with these words that I had never thought of before. And I felt called to write it down. And when I wrote it down, I read it to my wife the next morning. She was like, you have to do something with this. This is so special. And so it's 100% God. He just used me as the vessel, and I'm so blessed.
Once you got started at work on this, how long of a journey was this for you, clear up until it was published and out there for people?
It was really quick. I reached out to Christian Faith Publishing. They got the ball rolling for me. I'd say within just a few months, we were working on it. Within like 7-8 months, it was probably ready to go out. So it was on the internet. It was, they were ready to send it out for everyone to see.
Yeah, the publishing process, there's an awful lot involved there. What did you find the most challenging part of that publishing end of things?
I think just, honestly, they made it really easy. But I think, since I'd never done anything like this before, it was mostly just making my own choices, like how I wanted the book to look, graphics, the writing style, everything like that. So it was really just my own decisions. Everything else, they made super easy for me. So
this is your first book, so I could only imagine what was going through your head whenever your first copy of The Praying Nurse came in and you got to hold this in your hands finally after all that time working on it. Adam, what was that like?
It was amazing to go from never even thinking about writing a book to having it in my hands, able to read it with my son, to see the joy on his face to be able to read it. It was like something I never could imagine. It was really a true blessing.
And now it's official. You are a published author. So when you think about that, Adam, what's the most rewarding aspect of it for you?
For me, it's just seeing how it's already, of course, I got a few copies they sent to me and I gave them out to friends and family. Just getting the feedback from them about how their kids love it, how they've started praying because of it. That's the goal. That was my overall goal when I started this. Once I realized, that this is what God was using me for, that was the goal. And to get that feedback from them that it was actually happening was pretty emotional for us. So I pray about it every day. I pray that it does great and that it helps many, many children out there find their way to God.
Looking ahead, do you think you might ever do a follow-up to this maybe, or write something else in the future?
I was hoping, so I have, this first one just kind of came to me, but since we've been working on it, I started writing other ones. I've got them written out. They're ready to go. I'm just trying to kind of see how this one does. And, if people really enjoy it, I would love to make multiple, kind of like a series type thing out of it. So. Well,
it sounds like children and families alike are really going to get a lot out of this book. Again, it's titled The Praying Nurse. It's written by Adam Walker and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So find it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Thank you again, Adam, for coming on the show and talking about this book. I had a really nice time.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Right now, here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm sitting down with author Justine Keys. Justine, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I wanted to congratulate you. You have a new book out now titled Because a Rabbit Hopped All Over Everything. So, Justine, can you tell me about this?
My book is about a boy who was taking a nap and resting for the night, and he heard a rabbit knock at his window, and he opened it to discover that a rabbit had red footprints all over him, and he got the red footprints all over the house. The main character, his name is Harley, and he was chasing the rabbit around the house along with his family to find out where the rabbit was going. Eventually, they were able to catch the rabbit, and then even though they caught him, he was able to escape again. The story is just a whimsical, fun ride about them chasing the rabbit around the house and him leaving his red footprints.
Yeah, sure sounds like a lot of fun. How did you get the idea for this, Justine?
I've been working with children for about 10 plus years now, and sometimes during story time, I've been reading to the children and just enjoying some of the stories that I've been reading to them, and then I decided to create my own.
Have you ever done anything like this before, or are you new to this whole thing?
I'm new to it. This is my first book that I'm writing. In the midst of the publishing journey, I did start another one, so that I am working to finish that one and hoping to publish that one in the near future.
Wonderful. Now, once you got started on Because a Rabbit Hopped All Over Everything, how long of a journey was this for you? Clear up through when it was published and went out there for everybody.
So in 2020, actually the first day of 2020, I decided to just publish a book. I said, I want to write a children's book. I want my story to be heard, and I want to make people laugh and giggle. So I just opened my computer up about maybe 8 a.m. that day, and I decided to write the story. I finished writing the story within about 2 or so hours. I had my mother read it over, and she thought it was pretty funny. Then I was sharing bits and pieces with some members of my family, and they also thought it was pretty cute and funny. As we know, COVID happened, so I wasn't able to publish it the way I wanted to. And I also wanted to make sure that things were done in the correct way. So I put it on hold. Things got extremely busy for me, and I also decided to go back to school for my master's degree in higher education administration. So in 2023, I decided to take the leap of faith, and I was able to start my publishing journey.
Wonderful. Well, once you handed it off to Newman Springs, you started that publishing process. What did you find the most challenging part of that publishing process?
I guess waiting was the most challenging part because I knew that it would take a while, but I didn't know that it was going to take this long. And I was eager for the book to be out and on shelves and in people's hands and for other people besides the people close to me to read the story.
And then finally it happened. You get your first copy in and you got to hold it in your hands, Justine. What was that moment like for you?
It was a very surreal moment. I was very grateful. I was screaming for joy. I actually worked at a preschool, a public preschool, which they serve 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and kindergarten. I took my copy to work with me and showed my coworkers, and they were all excited for me. A few of them actually purchased the book, and they were able to read it themselves and then give me feedback, and also was asking me when the next book would be out.
And now when you think about it, you're officially a published author, Justine. What's the most rewarding aspect of it for you?
Having people ask me about the book and telling me their favorite part about the book.
Well, I think children are really going to love this book. Again, it's titled Because a Rabbit Hopped All Over Everything. It's written by Justine Keys and is published by Newman Springs Publishing. So you can find it everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Justine, it's been really nice talking with you tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you.
The new book, written by Rene Lauzier. It's titled The Great American Backslide and Our Silent Partnership with Darkness, Living in Opposition to Evil's Influence. This book explores how the Dark Dominion separates America from God and we're going to be talking all about this. The author, Mark, is sitting down with me here now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Mark, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me on ReaderHouse.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'm curious to learn all about the Great American Backslide and our silent partnership with darkness. Mark, can you tell me all about this?
Yeah, it's actually my first book, and it really represents pretty much everything we've all experienced as Americans over the past 5 years or so. But it's really a spiritual take on it. And I wrote the book to talk about and to bring some awareness to the spiritual realm and how that spiritual influence can influence America. I kind of wrote it as a call to action, just from hearing from many people about something is not quite right with this world today. What's going on here? And so I really felt that, it was time to address the spiritual realm and where we're heading as a country. And I really felt that our world leadership position as a premier superpower, that the country, Captain America exalts freedom, justice, morality, and liberty our brand was getting really diluted. And so the book really has everything to do with spiritual warfare and how it manifests in our world and actually how to recognize it. If we remain silent to it, we'll just continue to backslide. And that's where the title comes into play.
How did the idea for this book come about, Mark?
Well, it kind of was I've been in politics and public service for 40 years. And so over those years, I started in 1984 as a police officer. And over those years, I just seen and I worked for the last 20 years or so in the C-suite, as an assistant city manager, kind of an executive role. And over those years, I just saw it just continuing like a morality shift. The cancel culture paradigm being used more frequently. When social media came around, which was during my service in the public, it started getting even more weird. And so it kind of, over the years, and as I was wrapping up my career, it just gave me this impression that we really should think about how the spiritual world has influenced our morality and how things work. And I'm kind of a nerd, so I use some analytical skills, and I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and so I started analyzing politics in the world and what people have written about politics and political strife and moralism. And so I really focus on those issues because it's been a big topic in my career and in my trade, so to speak, for the last 10 years or so.
Mark, what kind of a reading audience were you writing for here?
I was really writing for those that are kind of more patriotic leaning, people who love our country, really think we can do better than we're doing right now. Maybe mostly people that have or possess some foundation of the spiritual realm and might have a biblical worldview. And I think it would resonate most with, more mature Christians and people who understand spiritual battle. I know the backslide, I say the Great American Backslide. I don't want to brand it as America's problem because it's going on in the world. And the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics is just another prime example of our backslide and how that is progressing. It's really not a partisan or political book. It's more about the Christian faith and morality and what is going on in the world and how can we recognize it.
Being that it was your first one, did this take a long time for you to do, both the writing and the publishing, that whole thing?
Yeah, from start to finish, I started it right before the pandemic and kind of wrote it through the pandemic. I started it around in 2020 and finished it towards the end of 2023. But it took about 3 years. And during the COVID pandemic, of course, we all were in different, work, family, life situations. And certainly as I saw that unfold, that just gave me more ammunition for the topic that I was working on as it went along. So, yeah, about 3 years, first time around.
Well, this sounds like a book I think a lot of readers are going to be into, and I encourage you to check it out. Again, the title is The Great American Backslide and Our Silent Partnership with Darkness, Living in Opposition to Evil's Influence. This is written by Rene Lauzier, and it's published by Covenant Books, so you can pick it up at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or also down the street at your local bookshop. Well, Mark, thanks again for coming on the show and telling me all about this book and about everything you got going on. I had a nice time talking with you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Author Angela Elder has written a new book. It's an inspirational guide to faith and resilience. It's titled Embracing the Diamond Within. No Pressure, No Diamond. And I get to find out all about this book. Angela is joining me now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Angela, welcome. I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Well, thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. I'm curious about embracing the diamond within. Angela, can you tell me what readers are going to find here?
You're just going to find out that, first of all, that you're not alone. It's a journey that we've all probably have gone through, mostly women, in reference to not feeling your own worth, bad relationships, bad decisions with your children. And you just find out that all in all, God has a plan for you, and that plan is for His glory. But you have to go through a few things sometimes before you can figure that part out.
Was it primarily women that you were writing this for?
Yes, I was. Because I've had my years of employment. I've worked with a lot of single moms and a lot of women that's gone through depression, domestic violence, everything that women may go through. But mainly when I was working with them, they would come to me and it's like, well, I want to be like you, or why are you like that? And I'm like, I was just as broke as you were. I just decided one day that I needed to really tap into what God's plan was for my life and understand that my mistakes are mistakes. They're not something that defines who I will be going forward.
Angela, what was that spark that made you say, hey, I want to write this book. I want to get this thing published. How did that come about? That's
the funny part. When I met my husband in 2014, I remember when we met our first date, we walked all day, we talked, and we had communication, and I just put everything out there because I'm like, okay, you want to be with me, this is me, every bit of it. So literally our date was a whole day of just communication. And almost at the end of the date, he looked at me and said, God told me you're a diamond in the rough. And I was like, okay, really didn't sit in too well, but I was like, okay, I get it. Then after me and him got married and stuff, and as I continued to talk to more women, people would say, you just need to tell your story. And I'm like, I can tell it because I talk all the time. So I can tell it, no problem. But, he convinced me to go ahead and just put it in writing. And that's how it started.
Have you ever done anything like this before, or is this your first time at it?
This is my first time writing a book. It's my first time to even think about writing a book. Actually, it's since 2014 till now being published. That's how long it's taken me. But it took me my own personal journey of I'm used to talking to people and just telling them what I've gone through when I need to encourage people. But I didn't know if I was truly ready to put it out to the world, as we say. But with God's guidance and my husband's understanding and my children's understanding, I went forward, and that's where we ended up at.
The story is super personal, and this is a long time in the making. And man, that day finally came for you, and you open up your mailbox, and there it is. Embracing the diamond within is finally there. You get to hold it in your hands. Angela, what were you feeling, and what was going through your head at that point?
What have I done? Probably a little fear came across because now I realize that you just put your life on Front Street, and there's people that, even though not named, but if they were to read the book, or some people in my past read it, they would know it's them, or somebody would know it was that relationship. And I was a little bit fearful because the reality of this is done. But, I realized that it's better to walk in truth and have forgiveness in your heart, and God will lead me the rest of the way. So there's nothing to be ashamed of when it's technically His plan the whole time.
Have you given thought to doing it again? Do you think you would write another?
Yes, I am. Yes, I really do. I have another one that's in mind, again, for women. I am an encourager of women. My work life was normally in affordable housing, so I dealt with women with low income and everything else. So a lot of that comes with a lot of low self-esteem also. I do plan on writing another book to continue to encourage women to live in their truth, walk in their truth, and it'll be okay in the end.
Well, this sounds like a book that is surely going to help and encourage so many people. I encourage everybody listening right now, seek this one out. Again, the title is Embracing the Diamond Within. No pressure, no diamond. It's written by Angela Elder and published by Christian Faith Publishing, so you can pick it up everywhere. Head over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores, and you'll definitely find this. Angela, it's been so nice talking with you tonight, learning all about embracing the diamond within. I just really appreciate your time.
So thank you very much.
Author Edward Smith's new book, My Encounter with God as a Commercial Truck Driver, is an inspiring spiritual journey. And Edward is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, and I get to find out more about this book. Edward, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you joining me here tonight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you and the audience.
Absolutely. Edward, can you tell me what readers are going to find whenever they open up My Encounter with God as a commercial truck driver?
Well, I'm certain that they'll come to a realization that not only there is a God, but that God is intimately involved and interested in every aspect of our lives, and that uniquely He has something for each and every one of us to accomplish in this life.
When you were writing this, Edward, was there a specific target audience you had in mind?
Not particularly, but I would hope that it would attract persons who have already made a commitment to the Creator, some acknowledgement of His involvement in their lives. And what I found in my experience, and I'm certain it might be so in many others, you think that you have a knowledge of the divine. You think you are okay following His instructions, His laws, His guidance. But there's a need for a relationship. And I am targeting Christians who need to know, first of all, that more than just practicing or Christianity or a religion, or more than just attending a religious service, they'll find that there's a missing element very frequently. That is a personal relationship. So I hope that Christians, first of all, or rather those who acknowledge God in their life, that audience will first of all recognize that. Secondly, my secondary audience is those who have never given serious thoughts about the reality of a God who wants their attention. By these incidents, by these testimonies that I've written here as my experience, I hope that it can reach them and bring to their consciousness that conviction.
Edward, what gave you the idea, or what inspired you to write this story and publish it?
I was fully conscious that He had brought me to a point where I'm convinced that He wants me to accomplish some things for Him. Having realized that, having gone through the process, I couldn't keep it to myself. I know there are others who would be benefited from it. And some of the things I explain in the book, it was very challenging for me to be transparent. In fact, a stronger word, it was very challenging for me to be naked. And I needed to be naked to the public. And so that motivated me to do it, write it, say my story, expose my life. It will transform me. So that's what inspired me. And I hope it can also impact many others who will read it.
Now, once you got started on this, how long of a journey was this for you, clear up through when it was published and went out there?
The journey, it's about 2 years. I had been anticipating to retire from my career. And just about the same time, I felt led to share my story. It was very difficult for me to start. Where do I start? I've never dreamt of this before. I've had experiences where I shared one incident or single incidents now and again, but to speak or to say or write my whole story, where do I start from? So what I did, I was advised by a friend of mine to just write whatever comes to mind. And when I'm through with it, go back a second time and organize it and put things together in a chronological order. It took me about 2 years, 2 years and a couple of months from the time I started to the time it was published.
Again, this is titled My Encounter with God as a Commercial Truck Driver. It's written by Edward Smith and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So head over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, also traditional brick and mortar stores. You can pick this up. Edward, thank you so much again for coming on the show and telling me all about your work. I had a really nice time talking with you tonight.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you allowing me this opportunity to share my book with you.
Author Nichelle Williams' new book is an insightful exploration of life with schizophrenia. It's titled Schizophrenic to Schizophrenic. And we're going to be talking all about this book right now. Nichelle is with me here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Nichelle, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
you. Thank you. I appreciate it. God bless you.
Oh, I appreciate you being here, and I'm curious to learn all about Schizophrenic to Schizophrenic, Nichelle. Can you tell me what readers are going to find here?
Well, it's basically just a story about my life and how I started having schizophrenia when I was in the military, and then what happened after I got out of the military and all the things that I suffered through, and then basically how God has helped me to cope. And he actually got me on my medicine that's in the book, because I was in denial. I was not taking medicine for many years. But yeah, I suffered through a lot, but God blessed me. I take my medicine every day. I just have so much joy in life. God just helped me so much. And basically my book is my story, me being schizophrenic, written to another person that's schizophrenic, helping them and trying to comfort them and give them the truth of the Word of God and kind of encourage them, hopefully for them to be saved through Jesus Christ. That would be a blessing for them to accept Him as Lord and Savior. But even if not so, until the point of just becoming more comfortable in life and enjoying life more, to be more stable. And I just pray that God does that for them, because He's blessed me so much. I know He's able to do it. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Nichelle, what inspired you to write your story here and publish it for the world?
Honestly, to be truthful, Jesus Christ told me to write the book, gave me the name for it and everything. It was like a piece of cake as far as what it was for, because it's my story, so I know it. The only struggles I had writing it was that it was going back into the past and dredging up those memories, It's kind of difficult to get through those, but God told me to write it, so I wrote it. He was on me. It took me years to do it, but it did take me quite a while, but I finally did it because He was really pushing me towards the end, and finally we got it published. Praise God. Thank you, Jesus. So hopefully millions will be able to be helped and comforted and feel some connection with me and Christ, that they can have a better life. See, have hope,
I love it. When it comes to writing and being published and all of that, Nichelle, are you new to this, or have you done this kind of thing before?
Actually, this is my first time. Yeah, this is my first time. I've never done this before. And if God didn't give me the idea to do it, I wouldn't have did it at all. But I'm just hoping it will affect and help a lot of people. That's my heart's goal, really my heart cry for them, my prayer, Well,
I could only imagine that day when you open up your mailbox and there it finally was, your book. You got to hold it in your hands and actually look at it. What was that moment like for you, Nichelle?
Oh, my gosh, so much joy. Just to sing it in person, to hold it in my hands, what? Oh, my God, we did it. God helped me to do it. I was just so excited. Oh, my gosh. Even right now, I just can't stop smiling.
I can hear your smile through the speakers. That's how much you're smiling, I can tell.
Thank you, me too.
Well, once you hand your manuscript over to the publisher, that whole publishing process begins, and man, there are a lot of hoops you got to jump through there. Nichelle, what did you find the most challenging part of the publishing end?
I would honestly have to say the financial part. But they walked me step by step through everything. They made it so easy. They were just so lovely. Everyone I work with, I had an excellent time communicating with them. They were so very helpful. They did a great job editing. I mean, my goodness, they're just so good at their jobs. I really appreciate that.
And doing this for the first time can be quite the learning experience. So, Nichelle, is there anything you learned along the way that you'd be able to throw out there as advice for aspiring authors who are listening right now?
I would say if God is giving you the dream to do it, you can definitely do it. I feel like with me, He gave me the words to say. Yes, it's my life, but He gave me the words to put it out there and to form my words. I think if God's giving you that dream, then you can definitely do it. It is possible. If God be for you, who could be against you?
Well, I think there are going to be a lot of people out there helped by the pages of this book. Again, it's titled Schizophrenic to Schizophrenic. It's written by Nichelle Williams and is published by Christian Faith Publishing, so you can find it everywhere. Go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. You'll be able to pick it up. Nichelle, it's been wonderful talking with you today and finding out all about this book and everything that went into it. I had a really nice time. Thanks for being here again.
You too. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. God bless you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.